Thanks, Jenny. My name is Mo. Normally I have Tepo here. But today we got somebody very special, Teddy Mattera, an award-winning filmmaker, to talk a bit about himself and the journey. Welcome, Teddy.
Thank you so much for having me.
For those that don't know who Teddy Mattera is, can you give a brief description of who Teddy is?
That's my name. Mattera is my surname. Outwardly, I am a filmmaker. I'm an academic. I'm a lecturer at the university. I teach film and film studies, and that's primarily from my work side. I'm also a single father of a 10-year-old son, a beautiful boy called Amilcar. And I'm the son of Don and Judith Mattera. I've got 13 brothers and sisters. So we've got 11 and 2 reserves if this was a soccer team. That's kind of that part. But sort of inwardly, I'm none of those things. I'm neither black, no white, no so-called colored, no Muslim or Buddhist. I'm none of those things. I am the everlasting. I am that which is part of the eternal, the omniscient. I am of the Creator. And so are we all, I believe.
No, definitely, we all are from there. So how did your journey start to become a filmmaker, actually, or what made you go into filmmaking?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. I'm going to start it off this way. I never have had a day in my life where I've worked, when I work making films. Never. I've never worked a day. And that's because of how much cinema and filmmaking is part of who I am. I started my journey with cinema at the age of 7. We were living in Old Western, and we had a gang on our street. And this was common to a lot of different streets and generations, boys and girls, by the way. When we couldn't afford to go to the movies, we would pool our little coins together, and then we'd send 2 people to go and watch the movie.
Okay.
So they'd go to what is now closed, called Reno or Lotus Cinema, not far away from here, right? I'm sure you've heard of it. And they would go, and at that time in the 70s, it was mainly spaghetti westerns, Clint Eastwood and all those guys, the Magnificent Seven Rides Again, Valdez is coming. I've actually made a film about this. It's called Waiting for Valdez, about my childhood, where we would go, and these guys would tell a film around a fire over a week in episodes until the next weekend. And then if you had enough money, then you could go. But we always, so you graduated, you started from 7 until you were 14 into puberty. So you each had a time in a year where you gained these skills, and guys would do things like, one would tell the visuals, and the other one would do the sound
effects, yeah.
So the guy would say like, Valdez gaan nie deur, and he stood right there, and then you have to do the sound of the, those old bar doors.
Yeah.
And if you got it wrong, you clap and say, rewind. And then it rewind, and you have to do the sound of the rewind. Exactly like that. So that's my journey with cinema, and then later on in the mid-80s, I went into an exile, political exile of sorts, in the 70s actually, high school, and I would come back, but I formally sort of went to the US, and there I started learning on an academic level about film. And then I worked in a collective in Chicago for about a year, making the Oscar-nominated Hoop Dreams. I was an assistant director on it. So it was a dream come true. Then I started making my own films.
How did it feel, a boy from Westbury,
Western
townships, to make it to actually be on that same level as what award winners would be?
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't take anything for granted. Eh? I mean, every bit and summary of who I am is put into the films I make. And you can see it. I mean, I've spoken to you guys now, we've talked and we've met with Natalie and yourself, Mo. I can't help, I see up there speaking to me, it says break free. I break free. I get me talking about other things. I love cooking and I love making movies and I love children. That combination for me is a recipe to life, because from the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon his name, to Jesus, to the great people, I think it was Jesus who said, if you hurt the hair on a child, it's best for you. Something I can't remember what the word. Natalie would probably help us with that quote. But for me, that's the same way. Is that cinema for me on that level has a way in which it can teach you about life, and that's how I teach film at the universities. It is a tool with which you analyze and unpack life. So.
Yeah, that's great. It's if you have a passion for something, you like you said, you never work a day in your life.
Never.
Yeah, and the pleasures. I know, like your father. Not a lot of people know who Don Mattera is, but he's also an icon of South Africa. That pleasure that you had to live up to that name. How was it for you as Teddy Mattera?
It's a blessing and a whip at the same time. One sometimes can get whipped by blessings. Because you get towed into the line of truth. But I think more than anything, being the child of Don Mattera has taught me about compassion. And which is it's a theme that resonates across religions, across lifestyles, across skin color. Compassion is what I've learned about. Funny things would happen. My dad used to run soccer teams, and he'd buy you a pair of new soccer boots, and some guy that you don't know comes from a worse off background, and he says, "Give him your boots." And you'd be like, "What? I must give new soccer boots. I haven't even run one game in them." And you give the guy your boots, and then for about 4 weeks your heart's broken. And then he gives you another pair later on. But the joy that you'd see in somebody else's eyes who's never had them, you learn these things much later in your life. As a teenager, as a boy, you don't understand what he's doing. But the benefit is today. I used to say I live in the shade of his love and who he is, but now I live in the light of who he is.
That's actually great words,
Yeah.
Words of wisdom. Do you have any words of wisdom for the youth, seeing that you're spreading some wisdom out there?
I don't know. I don't profess. I mean, you guys have seen me work. I don't really. I've worked in commercials. I've seen that lifestyle. Trust me, there were days when I used to walk around with 10,000 rand in my pocket and flash and have 2 cars and live in Melville and a house with a swimming pool until the day I lost that stuff. Because I'm an addict. I come from alcohol and drugs, cocaine. And until I got sober in 2004, I've had a couple of relapses, but I've recovered. And until I really came to know who I was, that I think that's why cinema for me is about that. People who write, who film, who know the story. You can't write what you don't believe in. You cannot. It's not possible.
Yeah.
From comedians to script writers to people who write tragedy, those who write comedy, those who write drama. You cannot, you work in that field, right? If you don't believe something is going to sell, it's probably not going to sell.
Definitely.
It's probably not going to, because you don't, and that's for me is that the thrust of no matter what you do, if you're sweeping streets, and you sweep streets because you see sweeping streets is a part of cleaning the spirit and contributing to the environment of people's lives, be the best street sweeper you can be. If you are going to be a president, be the best president that you can be, because that's what she owns, that's what she should be. Lenient, being an addict to tell people what to do and how to be. because I often look the other way and say, by the grace of God, therefore go I. When I see another person who is down on drugs and alcohol, I never say to them, never, you know, jy moet jou reg bring. Jy moet die doen en die doen en dit doen. No, rather accept the person for what they are and help them from where they are. You know, that's something I really believe in. So it frees you.
No,
you know?
definitely.
Here's the big thing. Ask yourself, whenever something is not right, what are you resisting? There's constantly something you're fighting against. Is it because people are not doing things the way I want them done? Or I'm not giving people the space to be who they are? Or I'm not... My grandmother said, he's al en alles involved. As jy nie die beklere is nie, dan is jy by die. En as jy nie met hulle kwaad is nie, dan het jy al gesien, jy appear in allerlei goede. You are a constant in all these things. So those 6, 7 people can't be wrong. Because you're the constant. So it forces you to ask yourself, if I'm the constant, then clearly I must also be the problem. But guess what? If you're the constant in good things, you could also be part of the solution. So this thing is twofold.
No, definitely.
It's twofold. My big metaphor or analogy is this one, and I teach this with actors and young people and fellow addicts, you know. If you imagine yourself going to a piece of grassland that's very quiet and beautiful, right? There's no noise, it's like a day like this. And you go and sit by a lake, and you take a rock, and you throw the rock in the middle of the ocean, right? My question is, what happens? Right? So what happens when you throw that rock in?
It's gonna sink.
What happens on the surface?
It ripples.
Exactly. You're on point. There's the ripple above, and there's the stone sinking, right? The outward ripples are the effects that you have on the lives of other people. And yourself as the center rock, right? The journey downward is your personal spiritual journey, right? And sometimes it gets stuck somewhere, and you have to keep getting it loose so that it keeps going down and down, and it never stops. If there was no bottom, it would never stop. And it would come out on the other side, and it would keep going, right? Yeah. And I consider that to be a big emblem in my life. When it's noisy up here, I try to calm it down here. When it's hectic down here, try to calm the top down. Just so the ultimate and most beautiful thing is when both are in balance, and the leg comes and you can't even tell.
That's when you start knowing who you are.
Then you know who you are.
Yeah, no, true. Not a lot of people speak about things like that, especially when it comes to an addict. I was also in that cycle, yeah.
Spiral.
That spiral, yeah. Where you actually try to find who you are, and then you go further down.
And you postpone it.
Yeah.
I talk about a postponement. You keep. You know what I say when I share in the rooms? I talk about how I used to sublet myself. You sublet yourself. I used to sublet my existence with my dealer. Toe gaan ek terug wat ek so wou. Toe klop ek, toe sê ek, hey, ek wil vir Teddy terug hê. Hele bietjie, those girlfriends that I used to have and lovers, I used to live for them, and they never used to live for me.
You want to please the next person, you want to do things for that person. And like you said, you're not that person that judges the next person. You say,
I try not to. I'm not a saint.
Or you say, look here,
God forgive me.
No, people don't understand that concept. So sometimes it's not themselves, it's just them trying to find themselves, but now you pressure them into going into another direction instead, because you're pushing them away instead of saying, you know what, I accept you to a certain extent, you know what I'm saying? Then start letting them recover, find out who you are. And I was proud, like when I was telling you, like when we spoke previously, you know, like when I said, because you know who you are, you know your identity, and that is important, and that is also what I wanted to shed light on. Like you said, you're not black, you're not white, you're not.
But those are things people identify me outwardly with, and I'm not saying there isn't human struggle around being a mixed person
Mm.
or being a person of a particular identity, whether it's your gender, whether it's your nationality, your ethnic or cultural identity. I'm not saying those things don't exist, but when you look at them properly, you know, when you really examine them, if you want to, I do a lot of meditation, you know, every morning almost I'm down, you know, on my lotus position, sitting with my back straight, following my breath, trying to quieten my mind. And suddenly there comes a time when you don't even feel your body. Your body disappears. But you know instantly who you are. That's a very, it's counterintuitive. Because we associate ourselves with the Kwai Watch arm, you know, it's Dolce and Gabbana, and down here it's this, and then I've got my shades, and I'm, you know, trying to be fly and stuff. But really, at the end of that, when all those things go and disappear, you ultimately are able to watch the watcher. And that which watches the watcher is who you are, who can observe the mind. When your mind is quiet, what else is there? You get in touch. That's why I can really, for example, I have a deep aim, and I can't even explain it, connection, say, with Islam. I'm not a Muslim, by the way. I'm a Buddhist, right? But I have a deep connection with Islam. Why? Or Christianity? Because I have come, at certain points in my life, I've come, even in my addiction, come close to understanding that who this creator not is, but how I am part of that creator's. You understand?
The cycle, the whole cycle.
Hey, bro, man, you can't explain spiritual matters with earthly words. You can't, you know? And Allah tells you that.
No, definitely. It's a way of life. Like you're saying, everything that you do, whether it's Christianity or Islam, it's a way of life. It's how you live. Jesus lived one way. The Prophet Muhammad lived one way. You know, they lived a way of peace, harmony. Like you said, you love kids. You don't, like you said, even the saying, don't harm
a thread of hair or something on it. He says it would be better for you that you don't live or something like that.
Even like Prophet, like you say, Muhammad, peace be upon him. We also mentioned like don't, if you want to hit a woman, hit her with a feather. You don't raise your hand, because the feather, you can't even hit her with a feather. And imagine a feather is like the lightest thing on earth. It's supposed to tickle you.
And I think it's also because they say more than what the ear wants to hear.
There we go.
You know what I'm saying? Because if you read in all of these people, you realize actually these people are talking stuff that is not about feathers and about hair. You see what I'm trying to say?
No, definitely, it's the
now, my thing is, how do you translate that into filmmaking? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
How do you bring into a screen what is not visible to the eye and the ear? How do you do that? If I put a frame around somebody and I present that person, quote unquote, how am I going to let people know what is going on in that person's mind, in that person's soul, what surrounds them? For me, that's the magic of cinema. Then, you know, one of my teachers at film school in London said to me, the day you can make people taste and feel color is the day you've succeeded as an artist. Wow. What does yellow taste like and feel like? You know, what does burgundy, how does it make you feel? So if you can present, there's films where people don't need to say, sorry for this shit, they don't need to say shit. You can just put the people, and people will come by, you can touch 1,000 lives, 1,000,000 lives with that one frame of picture that you have. And then I think you've succeeded. You know, it's like music. If you put on music, you're not sure where it's coming from, where it's going to, but you know it's there.
It's there, yeah.
And that, if I can do that with my films, you can bury me tomorrow.
Because you've succeeded.
Well, I've fulfilled the prophecy of that art.
Yeah.
You know.
So now, while we're on that, before we close up,
sorry, man, I'm talking too
tell
much.
us. No, it's actually great, because a creative, you need to express yourself. Whether it's like you said in a film, physically or even verbally, you have to express yourself. A creative is that person. That is why we in this creative space, So we also want to change that mindset of that youth to open up his mind into that creative. If they want to go into film or want to be a creative, what would be the process for them so that they can understand and see, you know what, it's actually not that difficult. Because, you know, I'm talking about our people, our youth of today actually, all they see is there's always this board, this wall in front, I can't jump over this wall. What would be the so what advice would you give them?
Do you want to mention the thing about the wall again, or do
Yeah.
you have it on the?
Yeah, the wall, when I say the youth of today, when they see a wall, they see a wall.
Okay.
They don't see a way or around the wall, over the wall, or gap through the wall.
Yeah, I think it's a question of perspective. Let you hold that side, I'll hold this side. So this is the wall, right? From that perspective, this is a wall.
Mm.
But the minute you change the perspective and she comes over this way, then it becomes a road. Then it's something you can walk over, right?
Yes,
it's the perspective that you're saying, maybe actually you can go around the wall, right? And then there are times actually you have to go through the wall. Addicts know this. We say that you have to go through the fire to come out on the other side. Most people that I know would prefer to go around the fire, around the wall, around to avoid the pain. But there's amazing lessons to be learned through suffering. You know, if you've lost a mother, like I have recently, I tried my best to avoid that pain. I had my head down. I didn't want to just, let's get the funeral done, let's go and get this done. And then the war in my head began.
It's a battle.
The war began in my head, where I couldn't open a picture and so. Now I realized, no man, go to that video of your mom. Hear her voice, let it torture you. Cry as much as you need, especially the men, you know. Cry as much as you need to, show your pain, carry your scars, and at some point, when you're okay, go to the, put it down and move on.
And that's what I just need to understand.
Put it down. Don't carry your mom's pain, your brother's pain, your sister's pain, your partner's pain. You know, this we've got enough. That's what environmental pain drive. Put it down and do so. So I think, you know, creativity for me is not something you can talk about. I think it's an experience. You know, those people who want to make films, you know, take your phone, tell the story, go and look at a series of trees, film the trees. At the night time, during the day, when it's windy, when it's summer, when there's autumn, look at the change, look at how impermanent things are. And then you'll understand creativity. There's a thing about how life is impermanent that teaches you great lessons. There's a thing about how everything is connected that teaches you great lessons. You begin to see all these things. You look at someone, it's like, oh yes, that's a mom's sister, ne? Maar ek ken vir haar van hier af. And then suddenly you see this world that you thought was so big and small, and it's the same with creative stuff, you know. I find, you know, I can't draw to save my life, you know, but I can certainly tell you what I want out of a storyboard.
No, definitely.
You know? So I don't know if that answers your question.
It actually does. It wraps it out in a whole perspective of creativity, actually. So we want to thank you for your time.
Hey Mo, man, it's been a pleasure, man. I don't know. I also want to thank you guys to reciprocate that, you know, that these people have been helping me to deliver my documentary at the moment on Sophia Town, Westbury, Generation. So I'm also grateful to you guys.
We appreciate it, man.
And you're a sharp man, so I don't know that I was sharp like you guys are when I was your age, man. I was thinking about the next grad, you know. And here you are thinking about saving the next young person's life, you know.
That's the main thing. Like, we can't change the past, but we can change the present.
Yeah.
We only want to touch that one person's life, you know, because that one person can actually change the community. And that is the aim of us, our projects that we do, even the show. is just to change that one person's perspective
Sure.
of life. That chain, break that cycle, you know, that chain that has hold onto the past, onto what your mother has become, your father was done, your sisters, your aunt, like you said. We can't carry that burden. So we want to thank you really honestly from the bottom of our hearts.
Yeah. and not the hearts of your bottom. I joke like that, don't worry.
We know how it is. And
yeah, what a beautiful time.
Yeah.
What a beautiful time.
We'd like you to subscribe to our channel if you want some more content, or if you feel that you need some little bit of motivation, or see that there is truth into moving forward in your life. Please subscribe to our channel. And thank you very much for joining us today. And thank you very much, Teddy, for joining us again once again.
Shukr.
Thank you very much, friend.